Hey guys, I'm Avesh. This is the 23rd video of .MAUI with Syncfusion control series. Let's quickly review our previous session before we get started. In the previous session, we learned about the data visualization controls available in Syncfusion MAUI controls. We discussed Cartesian chart control and explored creating Cartesian column charts using world population data. We have also glanced at Cartesian charts such as line, scatter, bar, area, and bubble charts and explored coding column charts for Cartesian data. In this session, we will continue exploring Cartesian charts and understand advanced features and customizations of Cartesian chart control. We will further explore the column chart, write code to create bar, line, area and bubble charts and add legends and legend customizations to the chart controls. If time permits, we will investigate how to interact with the chart using the available capabilities including selection, trackball, point on click, zooming and selection zooming. Let's now switch to the coding session and get going. We will continue using the same project that we have been using from the previous session. In the previous session, just to recap, we have created a data visualization .xaml file, and then we have also created a view model which is data visualization view model and created a view model to bind the data. Now we don't have the APIs built into this project, so we have created the sample data and we have binded the data to the data visualization charts.xaml under the binding context. We have also created a data visualization model to create the class object which holds the data visualization for the charts control. In the previous session, we have created a column chart which depicts the population growth of various countries such as US, Indonesia, Pakistan, Nigeria, Brazil and Bangladesh and Russia. We have also binded the palette brushes to this chart control so that we have alternating color for each of these countries to distinguish the data. In this session, we will extend the column chart and will create a multi-column chart which holds the population data and does the comparison between previous and current year. Let me switch to the code and show you how we can achieve that. Let me switch back to the data visualization model and create another observable collection that will hold the multi-data for different years. Let me stop this application and switch back to the code. Let me first use the source.model namespace. So let me change it to a using statement and use the source.model. Now that we have the source.model, let me remove this source.model and use just the data visualization model. Once this is done, let me create another observable collection and call this collection as multi-column Cartesian data. Within this multi-column Cartesian data, we will create the same data visualization model which is an observable collection. However, it will hold the data related to a couple of years. So let me copy and paste it from my other screen. Notice that we have the multi-column Cartesian data which is our observable collection with the data visualization model, and in this section in the constructor, instead of passing a single value, I'm passing multiple values. I have also changed the properties to name it as name value and high values. And let me switch back again to the model, and we have the current year's population data and the previous year population data. I have approximately added the previous year population data just to show the differences in the Cartesian multi-column chart model. Now once this is done, let me switch to the XAML file and do the necessary changes. In the previous session, we have created the Cartesian chart under the stack layout. We will create multiple Cartesian charts one after the other utilizing the stack layout, and we will define all of those different chart controls. So let me collapse this Cartesian chart as well as the horizontal stack layout. Let me copy this Cartesian chart right after this horizontal stack layout. Let me paste it. Now let me rename this as xname equal to, I would call this as multi-column chart. Let me define an xname for the first chart as well, and we'll name this as column chart. In order to bind the multiple columns, we need to do some changes within the column series here. In order to display the multi-column chart, let's wrap this column series with charts sf Cartesian chart dot series. Now the moment we define this, we can add multiple column series within this chat series. So let me copy this and paste it inside the series. Let me create another column series and bind the name and value. The first one is binded to the name and value. The second one will be binded to the name and high value, which is nothing but if you switch to the data model and go to the definition of the constructor, you have the value is the first value and the value one is the high value. So let me switch back. This is just for representation purpose. You can define your own properties and bind the data. Now once this is done, I'll remove these palette brushes from here. Before removing that, let's keep it like that to see the output. And once we notice the output, we will realign these palette brushes. Now let me change the name to, let's add a label for 2022 and let's add another label to 2023. Now we need to change the binding source or the item source from Cartesian data to multi-column Cartesian data, both the places. We will also add a legend icon and call it as series type. Let's add the legend icon as series type over here. We'll give some spacing between both of these column data and use the spacing in both the places. Let's also define some width for these column series. Within the column series, I'm adding the width as 0.8. Let's run this application and notice the output. Notice that we do have the chats, but they are overlapping with each other. Let's switch back and correct this output. So let me scroll to the top and wrap this stack layout with a scroll view. Let me create a scroll view with a height request of 600. And let me define the vertical options as fill, and we will create a vertical scroll visibility to always. Let me wrap this complete stack layout with the scroll view. Once this is done, let me restart the application. We are still seeing the overlapping between the chats, so let me switch back to the XAML file and do some more necessary changes to avoid that. So let me change the stack layout, scroll down and see what we can do to avoid the overlapping. So let me add some margins to the Cartesian chats. May add the margin over here and even to the first chat as well. Let me retain the height request for the first chat. Notice that we now have the chats one after the other. However, we are seeing this aligned to the left. We need to align this to the center. So within the horizontal stack layout that we have got, let me do some more changes with horizontal options to center. That should align it to the center of this. Let me also add a line or a box view which will differentiate between both of the chats. So let me add right after the horizontal stack layout. Let me add a box view with some margin, height request and color to distinguish between both the chats. Let me switch back and notice output. We have a line separator between these two chats. Now notice that we do have the comparison of the population for different years and for the different countries. However, we are not seeing the alternate palette brushes. In order to achieve that, we need to switch back and change the palette brushes from column series to the chat level. So which means the column series is holding the palette brushes. I'll remove it from here and I will add them directly to the chat on the top. That's it. Now if I switch back, you will see the difference. We can also toggle it in such a way that population is increasing. I'm going to put the high value and then the value after this high value. Now notice that it is toggled and we do have the different values for each of these countries. It is that simple. Although we have added the legend, we are not seeing the legend reflected on the chat control. So let's switch back and see what is the problem here. We need to enable the legend to be displayed. So in order to do that, we will add chats sf Cartesian chat dot legend and say that chats chat legend, and we will say toggle. Within that we will say toggle series visibility equal to true. This should display the legend in each of these Cartesian chats. Let me also copy this legend to the first chat as well. So let me copy this legend and place it in the column chat right after the binding context. Let me restart the application and notice output. Notice that we now have the legend being displayed here. Now this is a column chat. Let's now switch back to the code and create a column chat. Creating a column chat is pretty simple. So let me collapse these Cartesian chats and the box view. Let me create another box view as a separator. Copy and paste that. Let me copy this Cartesian chat and paste it here and rename this as bar chat. Now within this bar chat, I'm going to add a property called isTransposed and make it as true. Let me restart the application and notice the output. Notice that we now have a bar chat with a change in representation of x and y axis, and the transposed property, isTransposed property, has done the trick in interchanging a column chat to a bar chat. That's all it is. Let's now create a line chat which depicts the GDP growth of two countries, two popular countries, which are USA and UK, United States and United Kingdom. In order to achieve that, we need to create an observable collection of line data for both of these countries. So let me switch to the data visualization view model and create line data. Before that, let me stop this application and create an observable collections called line data 1, and I will also create another observable collection called line data 2. So let me copy this line data 1, paste it here and rename it as line data 2. Now, once this observable collection is created, we need to assign the values. So I'm approximately assigning some values to the line data 1, which is from year 2017 till 2013. I'm adding the GDP growth of USA. Along with that, I will add another line data 2 and depict 2017 to 2023 UK's GDP growth. Once I define these data visualization models, let's switch back to the XAML file and create the line data chart. Let's reuse the existing code. Let me copy this box view as well as the Cartesian chart, and within this, let me do some necessary changes here. Name it as line chart now. And then we will also change the title. Instead of population growth, we're going to change the title to GDP growth between those two countries. Once this is done, let me also change the x-axis. So we are going to replace this x-axis with the category axis. So let me remove all of these things and add or enhance this category axis with the necessary changes, which are axis line offset, interval, start, end, major grid lines. Also, I'm adding the tick style with the tick size. Now, along with this, we will also change the y-axis with the interval, minimum and maximum to depict the GDP growth. Within this, we will also change the label style, axis line style, and major tick style. So let me change these things and quickly replace it from my other window to save some time. Notice that I have added the label style, which is in the trillion GDP economy, axis line style, major tick style as well. Now, once this is done, we now need to focus on the Cartesian chart series. Now, we are adding the line series. Hence, we need to change this column series to line series. Let me remove the other column series. And we will add the labels, item source, animation and legend and other stuff. So let me copy this from my other window and paste it here. The first line series will have the label as US with the legend icon, show markers, binding path, and X binding path and Y binding path. The other thing that we can add is the marker settings. So let me add the marker settings here and name it as chats line series dot marker settings. And I would say the width of the marker is what we can define in the marker settings. So let's say chats marker settings, and I will add the width as 8, and we can also add the height as 8. Let me do the fill marker as white. Let's add a stroke as well as the stroke width for this marker. Let me add those properties and close the marker settings. Now, once this is done, we will create another line series for United Kingdom just below the first line series and bind the line data 2, whereas the first line series is the item source is binded to the line data 1. Everything remains same with a different fill, stroke and stroke width. That's all it is. Now let's start the application and notice the output. Let me scroll down and notice the output. Look at that, we now have the GDP growth for US and UK depicted from 2017 till 2023, starting from 0 to 100 trillion economy. Now if I switch back, now if you observe the category axis, the interval is 2. Instead of that, if I keep the interval to 1 and switch back, notice that we now have the years from 17 till 23 without skipping any of the years. Let me switch back to the 2, and now you notice that it is from 17 to 23. That's all it is. Pretty simple to create a line chart. Let's now reuse this line chart and create a dashed line chart, which is just a property that needs to be altered to create a dashed line chart. Let's now switch back to the code and create a dashed line chart. So let me collapse this, copy the box view and line chart and paste it here and rename this as dashed line chart. Now, in order to achieve the dashed line chart, we need to create the resources for the dash array. So in order to achieve that, we need to create charts sf Cartesian chart dot resources. Let me close this and create a double collection with an X key called dash array, and we will use this dash array to bind the dashed array. Now in here we will create a double 5 and we will create another property with double as 2. Now you might be wondering what is 5 and 2. In the Stoke dashed array property of line series, the Stoke dash array property of line series is used to render the line series with dashes. Odd value is considered as render size and even value is considered as the gap. Now let's utilize it and bind the dash array to the line series. In order to do that, we need to create a Stoke dash array within the line series and bind the resource that we have just created. We'll say Stoke dash array is nothing but a static resource of dash array. We will copy this and paste it for the second one as well. Now once this is done, we will restart the application and notice the output. Let me scroll down to the bottom and notice the output. Look at that. We now have the dash chart with the lines depicted as dashed lines for the GDP growth for US and UK. Now that we understood the line chart, let's now create a spline series chart. Spline series chart is pretty simple. So let's do the same thing that we have done earlier. We will copy the box view and Cartesian chart and paste it, and we will rename this dashed line to spline chart. Let me rename this as spline chart. Within the spline chart, we will change the line series to spline series. That's all it is. So let me copy this spline series and rename this line series to spline. The difference between the spline chart and line chart is the lines are pretty straight and the splines are curvy. Now let me switch back to the code and notice output. We have the spline chart which is curvy here. In order to differentiate, let me change it as GDP growth and rename this as spline so that we can distinguish it easily. Let me restart the application to notice the output. Notice that we have line, dashed line and the spline chart. Let's now explore creating the bubble chart using the GDP growth for different countries. In order to achieve that, let me switch back to the view model and create another observable collection called GDP growth collection. So let me copy this line data, paste it here, sorry about that, and rename this, create this as GDP growth collection. So I'm going to add the GDP growth collection of various countries. So let me start adding the US, India, China and UK's GDP collection right after the line data. So let me create this GDP collection and then switch back to the XAML file. Let's now create a simple bubble chart. Let me copy this box view and paste it after this Cartesian chart. Let me create a Cartesian bubble chart within here. Let me close this Cartesian chart and let's start adding the x-axis and y-axis. So right after this Cartesian chart, let me add the x-axis and y-axis. And after this, we will add the bubble series as charts bubble series, and then we will add the other properties of the bubble series within this. So I'm going to add a item source as GDP collection that we just defined in the code behind. I'm going to add a maximum and minimum radius of this bubble series depending on the platform. We will also add the opacity, size value and the binding paths. Once we have defined the binding paths, it's easy to run this application. So let me add a title as GDP and say bubble chart. Let me run this application and notice the output. Now notice that we do have a bubble chart with different data. However, the data doesn't depict to which country the data belongs to. So we need to enhance this bubble chart and do the necessary changes to show a tooltip on each of these bubbles. So in order to accomplish that, we are going to add resources and data template, which is nothing but our tool template. So let me add resources just before the x-axis and close this resources here. Within the resources, I'm going to create a data template, and within the data template, we are going to create the grid definitions and the stack layout. So let me add that from my other window. So I have a grid column definitions and grid data template here. Now within the data template, we are going to add a stack layout right after the label. So let me define a label right after this column definitions within the grid that holds the property of binding item.name, and then I'll create a box view after this label as a line separator for the tooltip. Now within that, we will create another stack layout right after this box view. The stack layout will display the pop-up related to the bubble. So in order to achieve that, let me close this stack layout, and within the stack layout, in the beginning, we will add a label that will bind the data value, which is nothing but our binding item dot value, which displays the GDP value in trillions. Now after this, I'm going to add another label which shows the GDP growth percentage of that country, which is nothing but our item dot high value, which we have defined in the data view model over here. Now let me switch back, and then I will add another label which will bind the item dot low property. It is pretty simple. I will anyway share this code and you guys can go through it once, and it is easily understandable. So if I scroll to the top, we have defined the resources. Under the resources, we have created the data template, which is nothing but our tooltip template. Within the tooltip template, we have defined a stack layout to depict different GDP value, growth, and the percentage of in the growth world. So let me run this application and show you the output. Notice that we now have the bubble chat along with these bubbles. However, they're not showing any tooltip right now. That's because we have not binded the output of the tooltip to the bubble series. So let me create tooltip template equal to the static resource that we have created above and call it as, sorry about that, instead of key, I need to define it as a tooltip template. Once I save this and switch back to the code, notice that we now have the tooltip with the GDP bubble chart of each of those countries. Now you can correlate that the labels that we have defined over here, which is nothing but our binding item dot name is the country, and within that we have created a box view which is a separator after the country, and then within the stack layout what we have defined is the value, which is nothing but our GDP value, which is 25.463 trillions for US, and then we have the other label which is binding the GDP growth, which is our 2.06%, and then we do have another property called share of the world, which is 25% of the entire world GDP is produced by US. After this we have China, and then we have UK, and then we have India. So the bubble chart is pretty easy and simple to depict over X and Y axis. With this, we have successfully understood the bubble, bar, line, spline and column charts. We will discuss area and other charts as well as the advanced capabilities of interactive chart controls in the upcoming session. Till then, thank you for listening and have a wonderful day.